Hello everyone and welcome to a review. Today we're going to be reviewing the 2022 stunt reality slapstick comedy film, Jackass Forever. Your cast for this one is Johnny Knoxville, Steve-O, Jason Weeman Acuna, aka Weeman, Preston Lacey, Chris Pontius, Dave England, Danger Erin, aka Erin McGeehee. New main cast newcomers are Sean McKerney, aka Poopies, Rachel Wolfson, Zach Holmes, aka Jackass, Jasper Dolphin, Eric Manaka, and I think that's everybody from the main cast. Other notable featured names that are technically not part of the main cast, of course, are co-creator, producer and director of Jackass, Jeff Tremaine, and co-creator Spike Jonze, as well as many other cameos, of course. Right, so let's get into the standout performances. Danger Erin, due to the amount of crazy shit he was put through in this film for me, is by far the MVP of this movie, just because of the sheer amount of risky and painful stunts he was involved with. You have him in the cup test segment where he gets punched in the crotch by UFC champion Francis Ngannou. He takes a fast softball pitch to the cup from pro player Danielle O'Toole, getting hit by a hockey slap shot from PK Subban, and then to cap it all off, Dave England jumps on his cup with a pogo stick, accidentally landing on his testicle in the process. Not to mention the burr lie detector where Erin is strapped to a chair, and then the guys release a live burr in the room which eats the food off his body. And then simultaneous to that he has a shock collar around him which the guys could control. The spider helmet where he wins of course, but gets roped into taking a spider bite in his chest, and he was in the Silence of the Lambs prank too, where he's shot with tasers, smacked in the head cymbal style with bin lids, hit with various objects such as pans, and then there's obviously the mental part of that as well, thinking there's deadly stakes in there with him, amongst various others, but yeah, he was put through the ringer massively in this film. Next, I'd say it'd have to be Poopies for numerous reasons. Not only did he have a bunch of brutal stunts himself, such as the mime snake bite, where he was bitten twice in the face by a snake, or the water skiing segment where he smacks the back of his head when landing on the floor, but he's here due to a separate scale I'm measuring him on. He's there not just for being the strongest newcomer, but for me, on par with the OG cast. His sense of humour and personality really fits in well with the group. He's a really funny guy. Jackass is more than just stunts, it's about camaraderie, reactions, laughter and banter amongst the guys, and Poopies isn't just a stuntman, he's a 100% pure cut DNA match for Jackass. He's everything the show is about, and with the main cast he really belongs there. Gonna have to put obviously Johnny Knoxville on here for that barbarous stunt with the bull. He didn't do a lot in this film, but when you see this obviously that's not surprising because yeah, he could have died. Jasper and his dad Dirkshirt were great, particularly Dirkshirt with his hilarious reactions, whether it's the vulture segment or the spider one. It's very funny seeing someone a little older of the background of Dirkshirt being a hard-up ex-prisoner and gangbanger, being terrified in such debilitating ways. It made for some great and unexpected moments. Also, seeing someone like him mesh with all the other cast as well makes for an interesting watch because of how unique and different it is. He really got on well with the cast as well, and you can see that too. Yeah, a very welcome feature for me. Jasper had some funny lines too, like the I came out of his penis man one, when he's talking about how embarrassed he is of his dad after his dad got scared of the vulture. I will say though, that's when Jasper is at his best as a main cast member, when his dad's there. Other than that, he's just okay really. I'd also say as cast members, Dirkshirt is better than Jasper in terms of overall value to the film, but that's just me. Chris Pontius drinking the pig semen, then having multiple funny lines like, yeah, that's semen alright after doing it. Him saying, it's been a while since I ate the horse semen, but I think I prefer the pig. Disgusting but gutsy for sure. He wasn't even asked to do it either, he just did it. Like, what an absolute maniac. So yeah, he has to go on here for that. Honourable mentions, you've got Steve-O for his bee sting part, Weeman for the vulture stunt and fall into the metal equipment, and then Jackass for the cactus dive, and yeah, that's probably it. Right, now that's all over and done with, let's get into the negatives. The only real negative about this film, like properly, is that there is no Bam Margera. Of course he appears in the background mostly, but of course I mean properly along with the other guys, in a more prominent role. Of course he's missing due to claims of being coerced into a strict rehab-based sobriety contract, which if he did not comply, he'd be removed from all future Jackass projects. He was subsequently fired for testing positive for Adderall by Jeff Tremaine, Johnny Knoxville and Spike Jonze, which he stated was prescribed for ADHD after initially being dragged out of rehab at the time to feature in the movie while still at the facility by Tremaine, Jonze and Knoxville. He alleged that the team exploited his creative ideas for Jackass Forever without proper compensation or credit. After intense public conflict, both parties reached a settlement in April of 2022, 2 months after this film's release. Of course, following the release of a new Jackass releasing in June of this year, of course 2026, Margera will appear in it as a more prominent member of the cast, but only through previously recorded, never before seen archive footage after signing a deal with Paramount. He still is yet to squash the beef with Jeff Tremaine, Spike Jonze and Johnny Knoxville regarding his apparent treatment on Jackass Forever. I do think it's a shame that this hangs over the film. I do think the film managed great without him, which I'll get into once I cover the positives in a minute about the film. But it is still such a shame that this is how things have gone down between the two parties, considering all the years of friendship they've had. But to be fair, although we don't know the full story, the information alleged seems quite insane, coercing a vulnerable, fragile and ill man into signing a contract, otherwise cutting him off a project he helped build. And not just a man too, but your friend of 20 plus years is absolutely despicable. It's a betrayal of trust and loyalty. You're practically forcing him into it. You're backing him up against the wall in that state. That's just so immoral. Also, you're dragging him out of rehab to essentially use him to fill your own wallet. How selfish and exploitative is that? I fail to see caring for a friend here. They had their own best interests at heart, not Bam's. He's nothing but a commodity to them, it seems. But there's zero concern for his welfare and what roping him in this film could actually do to him. It's a dangerous slope. Plying him with pills, of course, to potentially start him on a pill addiction, which is quite common for addicts of any kind, and you'd probably assume Bam as well because of his very addictive personality. And of course, when you think he's on Jackass and the amount of pain that causes when you're doing a stunt, I mean, that could possibly send him on a path there with pain medication. Making him be on a Jackass set where you get hazed and hurt, there's obviously a lot of anxiety, which could potentially be the driving force to sending him back to alcohol or just accidentally stumbling or falling wrong due to being in a state of delirium. And of course, not just hurting himself, but hurting, anybody else as well. Plus, you would have had to assume as well that with the amount of drugs that he was on, that there would have been a high chance of overdosing from that. And Bam said that he had experienced suicidal thoughts as well because of being on these pills. So yeah, if it's not the drugs that's going to kill him, it's going to be himself from succumbing to his own desires, obviously. And of course, you're going to have all of the publicity stuff for the movie as well, like red carpet events and stuff like that, which is going to naturally lead to parties and other types of functions like that, which is going to have people drinking, which Bam is going to be possibly surrounded by, which is just going to add to his already existing alcohol problem. It's just not a good environment. Also, just this whole experience in general can put him on a bad path as well, with the amount of tests he has to do, and how often, and how it makes him feel, etc. It's so unnecessary too. Why cut him off all future Jackass films? Why is that your caveat? Would the best thing to do would not be to make the film in the first place, until he is 100% healthy to actually be on set, or just do it without him until he can come back for the next one. If you really can't wait to do the movie, which they can afford to wait, so I don't understand why they wouldn't be able to do the first option I mentioned. I mean, forget about the film, your friend's in rehab, shouldn't that come first? Centre the movie around the state of your friend rather than centre your friend around the state of a movie. I mean, it's completely unnecessary and mean-spirited in my opinion. And in that state as well, where he's in rehabilitation, where Bam needs tranquility in the focus to try and get rehabilitated. And then you've got these three prodding him like that. It's just awful. Fired him for prescription drugs for his ADHD too. It's like they wanted him out. It feels like a conspiracy against him. It's strange. Even when he complies, it's not enough or not the result they wanted. All of the tests too, giving him medication and making him do breathalyzers and urine tests despite how Bam claims it made him feel. If they did truly care about Bam's sobriety in the first place, they would have dragged him out of rehab with their crummy dealings, and you wouldn't make him do something that clearly was doing more harm to him than good. So it's not like they could twist Bam doing all of these tests as a thing for his own benefit, because once again, the best place for his own benefit, the best thing to do for him for his own benefit is to keep him in that facility. It just feels like there was a mesh of different barriers on purpose so that Bam could fail and they had a valid excuse to fire him. At least that could have possibly been the intention anyway. And then on top of that, stealing his ideas for stunts too just seems purposely shady, nasty and horrible for no apparent reason. I mean, of course, Bam is already doing bad, so when you accumulate all these things together, it's just going to knock him down more. I mean, if you have to administer a sobriety contract anyway for your movie, then that already tells me that you're doing the wrong thing already. Because if somebody has that big of an issue with alcohol, then they've got bigger fish to fry than being on a movie in that condition, in that ongoing state. And yeah, under these circumstances, with someone who is not in their right mind, it's just so cruel. It just shouldn't have happened if it's true. For me, even if one of these things is true, then Knoxville, Tremaine, and Jones should all be ashamed of themselves. It's completely inhuman the way they've treated Bam if any of it's true. Moving on now. Of course, there was no Ryan Dunn too, due to his passing in 2011, due to a car accident, which, to make it clear, is in absolutely no way giving slight to the movie in any way, shape or form from me. But I want to put it here because, of course, he was one of the main guys and one of the most beloved. And it's all the more sad Bam's not in it too, considering, obviously, Dunn and Bam were best friends. Now that's done with, we can move on to the positives. So, despite the challenges this film had, the Bam Margera situation, new cast members to adjust, delays with COVID, no Ryan Dunn, being 10 years and of course 12 years following its release since the last one, it overcame them significantly. The Bam situation is a big one regardless of what happened. It's a major handicap and setback for the film. Doing a film without one of your most popular and recognisable members is tough, but they pulled through and I think they did it in the right way. Not addressing it, having that carry on regardless attitude, was the right thing to do and it paid off really well. Speaking of that, let's talk about the difficulty of having new members. There's so much scrutiny they're under, big shoes to fill with no Bam there, being surrounded by your heroes and the nervousness around that. But they fitted in seamlessly and they all brought fresh new energy to the franchise. And I could definitely tell you, when the new cast members were announced, I had my own apprehensions. I was worried that they were going to ruin the film, but that just wasn't the case at all. I think the biggest is Poopies, and of course I've already covered him. Jackass is of course a large man. He takes on that human cannonball humour really well. Very much a flexible Preston when it comes to stunts for sure. He can do what Preston can do, plus he has his own add-ons. He's perfect alongside Wee Man and Preston, and having those big versus small stunts. He's also just daring and fearless, probably the most out of the new cast aside from Poopies. He has hilarious reactions too, particularly in the snake room segment. Other than that though, he likes to flirt, camaraderie and humour with the guys, which doesn't matter too much, as I think he gives stunts to the show that other people can bounce off and make something from. If 100% is a fully great fit for Jackass, he's probably at 90%. As I said, Jasper is at his best when his dad is around him. Other than his good reactions, I'd say the best way to describe Jasper is like a sleeper agent or a dormant. He doesn't really do anything, really, until he's activated by his dad, but then he really gets going, in my opinion. That's the majority of the time, anyway. There's some individual cases that go against that grain, but he's still not as dynamic as Jackass or Poopies. He's decent for stunts as well, but in a way that any able-bodied person is. He's young and can do it and take it. Simple, really. Nothing special. Next, I think, is Rachel Wolfson. She did some stuff in this film, licking the taser, getting stung by a scorpion, or used as a straight man in pranks, but she didn't really do much else. I don't know if it was a thing of she wasn't agile enough to be involved in stuff like the skiing or the slide, or maybe she just didn't want to risk injury or something, who knows. But yeah, she felt heavily left out of most things compared to the previously mentioned members. The physically based stunts anyway. She isn't really that funny either, no real rapport with anybody, but what she was involved in, yeah, she was alright. Eric Manaka was the weakest though, no real defining moments to show off his personality, he wasn't featured heavily, his stunts were okay, like where he ran into an invisible wall at full speed on a bike, and his moments with the slip and slide where he was dressed as a horse with Poopies and had a pretty rough landing. Those were the most notable. Aside from those and a few other stunts, he was in some side appearances in other people's stuff watching from afar. It was just a background voice really in those and just in general too. No real display or any connection with the others as well. He was just kind of there. Delays with COVID, you have the pandemic itself, which made them push back the release of this film 4 times before the final release, mainly due to the uncertainty of people going to cinemas to watch it. Also, of course, yeah, you have all the injuries that happened during the time of filming. Johnny Knoxville and the bull stunt, which almost cost him his life. The doctors were initially worried that there would be brain damage as a result of all that. Steve-O breaking his collarbone on the treadmill stunt. Aaron got badly hurt and knocked out too on that one. Yeah, so, that was the reason why it was delayed as well. No Ryan Dunn too, which was another setback, which has some big shoes to fill for the new cast. And the existing cast as well, really. The focus could have been on that if the guys didn't do such a good job at pushing on without him. And that's everybody, by the way, not just the new cast. But despite this, the movie came out amazingly, considering all the setbacks. The vibes were as strong as ever, the production was as clean and high as ever, the ideas were as creative as ever, the laughs were off the scale. For me, everybody involved deserves major credit. They all soldiered together and put out something special. Arguably the best single-related Jackass product ever released for me, but that's a tough call to say for sure, but definitely one of the best at the very least. And as I mentioned, yeah, a lot of time had passed, 10 years since the last one released when they started production on this. I'm sure the questions of, do I still have it were asked because the cast are a lot more older and a lot more brittle, and yeah, at times some of them stepped back when it came to this movie. But when those people did do stuff, they really made it count when they did participate, and they mitigated themselves well, whether it's Knoxville with the ball, Dave with the paintballs, Chris with the pig semen drinking, and marching band treadmill stuff, and Preston with the speedball punch to his balls, etc. Of course, the OG cast doesn't participate much in the big physical punishments that much in this, but they are mostly involved in the comedic bits or playing off the punishment stuff, making jokes. But it's relative, it's not the year 2000 anymore. These guys were in their mid to late 40s or 50s. At this point for me, they've earned their badges enough to do little painful things as their past precedes them. Having them in roles like Knoxville was in, where they have control of punishments, either of fellow OG cast members or new, or both, makes for an entertaining addition for sure, and I like that. I do think they could get more involved in the less aerially dangerous stuff though, like Steve-O with the bees or Erin with the cup test, etc. If I had it my way, they'd lead more into that in the future, so they can still be actively involved in bigger quantities, as well as the roles they had in this. But with what they did do with mixing in pranks and more reactionary based stuff, it worked really well. That was just a nitpick from me, really. I do think despite the way and everything going against this film though, it didn't just deliver, it absolutely over-delivered. It was amazing. Favourite moments now, and there's an absolute ton. The opening, best opening of any Jackass easily for me. The camera work, the comedic timing and the pan out on Pontius stood there over the table with everything out. His penis and balls painted in the monster gear with no music, nothing. After the intense music and insane scenes is just perfect and hilarious. The design of the monster is magnificent. The acting, especially from Dave England, specifically shouting "fucking look" as he looks panicked, was top notch. The callbacks to previous stunts felt like I was watching a action horror movie on the history of Jackass. Wonderful and creative. The visual effects were out of this world. The transfer between everything the monster did and how that looked with the cast was so impressive. Faultless and well replicated. The monster shooting a white liquid out of its nostrils was great. Johnny being the last alive worked, but I do think a callback to the Jackass 1 opening where they were all in the old men makeup and Steve-O was the last alive would have been better. The timing of Knoxville getting squashed and the effects was sublime. The editing was inspired, then the turtle and the CGI on that was straight out of a horror film, into the outward camera of the still figure turtle, into an actual in real life turtle that gets picked up and bites Pontius's penis as a cherry on top. This opening tied in a spectacle comedic monster movie inspired opening with some highlight reels of previous stunts and some genuinely breathtaking effects, acting and visuals with a real stunt to boot, blending scale and tone doing so. A perfect opening with a perfect blend of everything Jackass with some added coolness on top. What more can you ask for? Another favourite moment is Dirtshirt versus Erin with the spider. You see Dirtshirt lose with the spider as it makes his way to the helmet, him being frozen in fear, holding on tight to Knoxville, then Erin celebrating that he won, when after he gets roped into being bit by the spider despite winning, and Erin says, "Let it crawl up a bit and bite me on the arm." Steve-O says, "Nipple," Erin says, "No." Steve-O says, "Just do a boob," and Erin says, "Alright, fine." Knoxville then says, "Nipple? No. Boob? Sure." Then you have Steve-O holding his hand, Knoxville throwing the fake spider on him, and then you have Jasper doing it later with Erin screaming. Such an hilarious part of that one. The mime skit was hilarious. Steve-O really selling the bait, doing the brush off the shoulder at the skateboard guillotine as he signals Knoxville to go higher with it. And then when Knox goes halfway, he does, and the skateboard drops with a loud thud. Steve-O looks visibly like he's regretting the decision. It drops on his leg, and he lets out a loud yet brief scream. Hilarious. Plus Poopy's getting bit twice by a snake, then avoiding the taser from Knoxville with Knox saying that he was saving Poopy's. Then he goes over and quote-unquote saves Jeff Tremaine by tasing him too, and you have Jeff trying to pull out the taser. He has his protection on set, but he can't get it out. Then Rachel licking the taser. Absolutely love this. The Dun Dun game was an absolutely hilarious concept with the flip-flops on the mechanism that if Johnny pushes a button, it slaps one of the three contestants on the nose. The whole segment is golden, but the moment where Poopies gets a question wrong and Knoxville pushes the button that hits Erin in the nuts, then Erin flails around with the funniest pain expression on his face, absolutely murdered me. Fantastic stuff. The whole of the Silence of the Lambs bit was first class. The concept is ingenious first of all, having it being disguised as a stunt with fatal stakes, and the barrel switch happens of non-lethal but still threatening stakes in their own way. The light going off was inventive, the reactions in there was great. Erin's was the best just from him reacting of what was happening. The two bin lids to the head, finding a broom and trying to use it as a weapon, then Knoxville snatching it away with Erin fighting, then getting tased as a result because he wouldn't let go. You also have him finding the door to escape, trying to get Dave to come with him to no avail because Dave is refusing, and then Erin says, "Okay, you're on your own, motherfucker," then runs headfirst into a walk, and then he screams, "What the fuck is going on?" Then when he finally escapes, he has a soccer ball thrown at him. Amazing. Jackass getting bit by the snake thanks to Knoxville grabbing it, and then panicking, being led by Knoxville through the door. and Knoxville pushing him, Zach slipping on the marbles saying motherfucker, then getting up and climbing over the table while breaking it, which is full of rat traps and thumbtacks, and the whole aftermath of that, when Poopy says that he came in there because he thought someone was getting murdered. Preston holding a sheet, panicking and shaking was great. Poopy saying, so if we get bit, we die. Are you serious? In the most earnest, monotone voice was funny. Zach then screaming when Poopies comes on the couch, not knowing what it was. Knoxville putting a fake spider on Poopies and him freaking out. Same with the snake. When the prank is over, when Knox says we're done, Dave says open the door. That was locked behind them, of course, when they first entered the room. And Knox says he can't because it's locked. Then Knox says to go to the other one with all the traps and stuff, because that one's locked, and Dave says no, fuck you. Then he says fine, I'll start a new life in here. Yeah, top segment. The human ramp segment where everyone says that they're gonna fucking die when Zach gets on the bike. Then Zach going flying and getting some air, and that tumble he took was nice too. And yeah, really funny as well. The bee part where Steve-O has the bees stinging his junk was funny too. His screams were decently funny, but the 2 times Poopy's got attacked as a bystander by the bees was even funnier. The musical chairs bit was a great source of comedic timing. Then you have Wee Man hitting that he has to go round one more time after Knoxville yells it out, or after they've already went round once. For Wee Man to go flying and landed the gap in the middle of all the chairs where the metal equipment is, it's funny for sure. Johnny being launched out of the cannon, which was absolutely perfect, literally head to head with the camera, and the added spreaded wings as well that he has on him too. Yeah, that made it look even better. Jackass in the cactus stunt, which looked brutal but was funny too, especially as he nearly took out Poopies and some others while he was rolling afterwards. Speaking of brutal, I wouldn't call it a favourite moment in terms of the moment itself, but it features my favourite moment afterwards, plus it feels right to mention it because of the funny stuff before it and after it within the same segment. Aaron's reaction to getting pummeled in the balls by that boxer brought me to tears, extremely hilarious. Same with the scenes following, such as the baseball pitcher and the hockey player, as it's the same thing with different athletes, equally as hilarious though. Then you have the pogo stick where Dave accidentally lands a direct hit on Aaron's testicle. I couldn't even look at that again. I've seen that scene once in cinemas, of course, because I didn't know what to expect or what was to come. And I looked away when they showed the replays in cinemas, and I've still not seen the scene since, despite watching this film a handful of times since. Because I still can't bring myself to do it. It's too much. Aaron is such a warrior, man. His courage isn't talked about enough for that stunt. Yeah, incredible. Surprisingly, when Aaron shows his balls to the camera and you have the cameraman Lance throwing up in the most dramatic of fashions, moving so tipsily, then him falling to his knees, I was absolutely howling laughing in cinemas. By far the most I've ever laughed at this film. I think it's the string of reactions from Aaron to the shock of that scene, to quickly Aaron showing off the damage to his testicles, and then Lance moving in the most overreactive way possible and throwing up slowly, falling to his knees. It just killed me. The marching band segment has to go on here just for the visual and the vicious landings from everybody. You have multiple injuries from people in one segment alone, as I mentioned before. Yeah, pretty rough. The bicycle backhand segment was good, just for how unique the idea is, and it made for an interesting part, I'll say. The impact was so devastating as well on MGK, yeah, I liked it for that. The water slide segment was fun too. The really harsh slam from Jasper and Jackass, where they both roll after hitting the sand. And then you have Eric and Poopy slams, which really made the segment, as yeah, Eric got really hurt on that. Then the Poopy slide, where he goes on his own, where he has the funny prelude, where he says Poopy's famous movie star, before slamming his head into the sandbags, which was just insane. The skiing segment was good as well. Poopy's slam looked really shattering though. He got lucky on that one. The whole vulture stunt was incredible. You have what I assume is a producer or something yelling quiet on set, and then Pontius singing the Milk Milk Lemonade song, and then Johnny cackling and reiterating the scene, which was funny. Then the stunt itself with Wee Man having meat shoved in his Speedo and the vulture snapping near his guts, and then Darkshark holds the vulture on his arm and being absolutely terrified. Absolutely stellar. The Chris Pontius pig semen bit, which I've already covered, I'm not going to mention that again, but that was good. The electric tap dance part was great for the bit itself, but the prank on Tyler the Creator having a shocking thing underneath. And then you get Jeff sitting on it and he goes flying on the chair, yeah, that was fantastic. Dave England and him getting dumped on by pig semen and some lands in his mouth, great prank, great ploy, and revolting all at the same time, but for no reason afterwards, while everyone is laughing, you have Johnny tasering Aaron, which threw me off and just, yeah, it made me lose it. The penis ping pong paddle part is good because of how stupid and funny it is. You have Rachel saying, yeah, for sure you're not going to be president, and then Poop is chiming in with, you never know, I'd vote for him. Then Chris is, now we know what that's about, after the stunt is done. All perfect. Of course, the bull part, which was devastating on Johnny Knoxville, it was intense. How he didn't have life-changing injuries or didn't die is beyond me. So close to complete upset. Erin and the burr stunt, tricking Erin the way they did, the shock collar being used throughout the stunt, even when the burr was there, the food being around Erin, and there being absolutely zero safety precautions. And at one point the burr was very seemingly going to eat Erin's penis. Of course it's funny, but yeah, it could have gone so badly at any time, and there was nothing no one could have done about it. Best stunt in the film because of that for me. The merry-go-round bit at the end, the explosions, the tanks, the spectacle, everything going on was pure cinema. What a way to end the film. The credit scene was fun, showing moments from over the years, callbacks in this film, and BTS from the movie too. Great to see Rab on there, of course. Of course, the stunt that occurred in this film was inspired by a stunt that Rab performed in a previous Jackass film, aka the nappy one. And it was so nice to have Ryan Dunn be shown in the final few scenes as well. Conclusion. Despite the various restraints this film had, it managed to deliver massively by putting out one of the best, if not the best installment the franchise has ever had. Everyone was on their A game, the comedy has never been greater, the stunts have never been more risky, the ideas have never been more genius, the dicey new cast additions paid off immensely, with a lot of strong new faces putting everything on the line in this film. Some weren't perfect in always Jackass or weren't featured a lot, but everyone added something in some way, with Poop is by far being the biggest breakout star of the new cast. There were many stepbacks in the film from the main cast in terms of stunts, but the phrase less is more is really apt for that side. I think them in their variously different roles instead work for the film, despite it being something that could have been a negative for the film. There was a lot of hazardous stunts in this film, but Erin deserves all the love in the world for the agony he was put through in this film. Easily the MVP in the whole movie, as I've said. This movie is all the attributes of Jackass flying at fusion rate. For me, this film is an easy 9.5 out of 10. I think if you have Bam in there, it's a 10. Hopefully Jackass 5 can live up to this one when that's released. And yes, I'll be reviewing that at some point as well as the rest of the movies, I'm sure. But that is it from me. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you later.